Well, let's speak to Kevin Brennan, who's the Labour MP for Cardiff West and Shadow Secretary of State for the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Good morning.
Morning.
Right, thanks for coming in. I think, many people may not have heard of Tracy Crouch before yesterday, but I think they will be interested in an MP who clearly stuck to her principles.
Yes, that's right. And just to be clear, it's £2 rather than £20 that the stake is going to drop to next October. But everybody had anticipated that it would be next April. And Tracy Crouch had been responsible for the government review over 3 years, which concluded that these machines were doing real harm to people and causing gambling addiction, including among some of my own constituents who've come to see me about it. And she's someone, I suppose, someone's described as a round peg in a round hole, someone who had the respect of people across the political spectrum in the House of Commons because she actually cared very passionately about the subject, but also is someone who knows quite a lot about her subject area, which includes sport and gambling in her brief. So it's a really careless thing for the government to allow this to happen because eventually this is going to be introduced. They could have introduced it next April, instead of which they've listened to the gambling lobby, delayed it, and in the meantime that'll cause more misery to the gambling addicts and their families.
Well, they do suggest that it was intended to be introduced in April 2020. And so there's no delay, and actually it's going to be October 2019 instead. I suppose the details are perhaps irrelevant in this case. When you come down to the human cost, do you believe there will be a human cost?
Yes, all the evidence suggests that, and all this thing about they were going to introduce it a year later is just pure sophistry, and nobody believed it in the House of Commons yesterday when the Secretary of State said it. He sounded like Comical Ali, in the Iraq War, trying to pretend that this wasn't a delay. Tracy Crouch has resigned because there's going to be this unnecessary delay, and it's a real sop to the gambling lobby. And in the meantime, as we've heard already, the harm that it causes, including not just the loss of money to people who can't afford it, but actually, mental health issues, suicide. There's real evidence linking in the report suicide, particularly amongst males, with gambling addiction. And with these machines where you can walk into a shop on the high street or on the district shopping centre and lose vast sums of money in a very short space of time. And they even have lists in these betting shops of people who voluntarily sign a list that says, do not allow me to play these machines, and they have to show that to the person when they come in.
You mentioned your constituents. I mean, what examples have you heard?
Well, I had one particular family within the constituency, obviously it's confidential, I can't reveal their identity and so on, but who's basically their son's life had been blighted by these machines, and as a result of that they lost all their money, broken home, broken family and so on. And it's that sort of thing that's been repeated across the country. And we all take responsibility for the fact that these machines have been legal. But once it became clear the harm that they were causing, then we should act as quickly as possible. And all the evidence is that the government have delayed this to allow the gambling industry more time, but it's more time to make money out of the misery of others.
By the same, we all take responsibility for this. That's the fact that, Labour were the ones who let these come onto the high street. During that boom, super casinos, Labour were all for the gambling industry, it seemed.
And that liberalisation was a mistake, particularly in relation to these machines. And the evidence has been building about that. And I think, if you make a mistake, then you put your hand up and admit it. It was also supported by the Conservative Party at the time. We should all admit that we got that wrong and do something about it as quickly as possible. And that's why Tracy Crouch has resigned, because the government could do this more quickly, but they've caved in to the gambling lobby.